One of your Monday night two-pack in the books and running into the record books. A night for Jahmyr Gibbs to remember. 78 yards to the crib in the second quarter to extend the Lions' lead to 14-0. Gibbs out the gate. But this one, in studio, Joe Musso, pleased to be alongside my guys, the two-time Super Bowl champ Ryan McFadden, CBS NFL analyst Emery Hunt, here to dive into what we saw. And I feel like there's a lot we got to get to, but let's start with Gibbs. That performance, 218 scrimmage yards on this night, most by a Detroit Lion since Megatron in 2013. And Mac, it really doesn't feel like how you get him the ball. If it's in his hands, your chances to win go up.
You know what? We just watched an elite running back last night on a primetime stage in Christian McCaffrey, and we just saw the impact he had on the win for San Francisco against the Atlanta Falcons. And when we really thought we saw the best back in the National Football League, clearly Jahmyr Gibbs said, wait just a sec, the best back has yet to play. And what he did tonight, Emery, was basically say, I am the best running back in the National Football League. I'm not just a running back, I'm an offensive weapon. And the thing that I love about Jahmyr Gibbs, the sudden burst.
Yeah.
His ability to go 0 to 60 with at the blink of an eye is oftentimes felt, and he can score in so many different ways. He's not a big back, but I love his contact balance, and you don't see one guy get him down. You have to rally to the point of the ball carrier with Gibbs because he is a tough runner, even though he's not a Derrick Henry type of back. He's not a Josh Jacobs type of back, but his contact balance and his ability to fall forward is oftentimes felt.
Mac, you know I don't need flowers.
Yep.
Maybe a thank you card. Who told you Jahmyr Gibbs was on this trajectory?
You did.
We were a couple. This show was out in front of it. Not to say anyone made Jahmyr Gibbs,
you said it.
It's getting harder and harder to give David Montgomery his touches because Gibbs is so special. What makes him special in your eyes?
I'm glad you asked me, Joe, because I was on this network when I said Jahmyr Gibbs is RB1 in that draft class that had Bijan Robinson. And the reason why people laughed at me then, he's only 199 pounds. Well, you can't hit what you can't catch. You can't hurt what you can't touch. And when you look at someone like that, you got to get him out of space. No, you don't. The fastest way to get from point A to point B is straight ahead. Contrary to popular belief with the running back position, when you have smaller backs or lighter backs, you want to run them inside.
Yeah.
Why? Because they get up on the linebackers quickly. One subtle move left to right is 88 and out the gate. We saw that in his play where he hit the home run right down Main Street. And when you do give him space like we saw on numerous swing passes tonight, what was it? It created a kickoff return type situation where he's attacking the lane, he's attacking your leverage, and it's boom, explosive acceleration where it's rare to see acceleration, but you see his acceleration. So you see him digging deep and getting that second and third gear. So he is an elite runner indoors on turf. This is an explosive talent.
Jahmyr Gibbs and this offense meeting and exceeding expectation once again. On the other side, we had that in our pregame script, Mac, but we also kind of looked at Baker and this Bucs offense as able to match them blow for blow. We thought this was going to be a back and forth battle. What'd you see in Mayfield's performance here? It looked like they sped him up earlier in the game and really never found his rhythm.
Well, what I saw, number one, Aiden Hutchinson was a grown man. He might not show up a lot in the stat sheet, but his impact in the game was often felt. I mean, the bull rush, the moves, relentless effort to make things difficult for Baker Mayfield. It was tough for Baker Mayfield, but I can't overlook Kelvin Shepherd and the job he did in terms of play calling, the strategy, and just the execution in a game in which he was missing his top 5 defensive backs. Terrion Arnold, DJ Reed, Kirby Joseph, Ryan Branch, who was suspended, Avonte Maddox. We didn't know exactly what we would get, but then when you look at the guys who filled in, Eric Hallat, Arthur Malott, Rocky Sin, Amik Robinson, Thomas Harper, Nick Whiteside, all of those guys combined for 8 PBUs and 1 interception.
That's great stuff.
That is high-level play if you have your starters in the game against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. But these guys that I just named, they're not starters. Some of them were third and fourth teamers that were called to action because of injuries, and they did not blink. So when you look at, I know we say it all the time, it's cliche, the next man up mentality. Well, that doesn't really work out in terms of production because the next man up really can't uphold the expectations. But because of the coaching, by Kelvin Sharpe and his staff. Shouts out to Deshae Townsend, my former teammate, who is a part of the secondary coaching staff there. Those guys did a phenomenal job in getting these guys to be in place to be able to execute to the level in which they did.
I can't help but sit here and draw further parallels from what we saw in primetime on Sunday night to what we saw on Monday night. You talked about the tailback, also the attrition that this Detroit Lions team has been dealt, similar to San Francisco. And it's two teams that continue to find a way to win. Now, they didn't lose a Fred Warner, but still, those two deeps, those three deeps making big plays in big moments, Emery.
Yeah, when you look at why this happened tonight, we talked about this in the pregame. That's why you had to lock in with us during the pregame show, folks. So we gave you these nuggets. The return of Alim McNeil and the emergence of Tyleik Williams, the rookie defensive tackle out of Ohio State. Alim McNeil was the stud tonight because you got that interior pressure versus a shorter quarterback, which means he's going to get off his spot. The ball will sail high. We saw a lot of high throws. And to your point about those reserves, how about this? This is the linear leadership that we talked about with Brad Holmes and also Dan Campbell. They understand this. Talent is everywhere. Nick Whiteside, Saginaw Valley D2 program, 3 PBUs, St. Louis Battlehawks, UFL. Jacob Sailors had a 28-yard kickoff return, St. Louis Battlehawks, UFL. Jake Bates, Michigan Panthers, 58-yard field goal. So when you need to go get guys, they find guys to go get and fit this mantra. And bingo. And when you have the next man up mentality, they embody the mentality of the football team. They went out there and say, hey, it's our job. We are the Detroit Lions. That's why they went out there and dominated. Made things difficult because Baker couldn't step up in the pocket and he couldn't escape because you got power rushing coming from Hutchinson on the outside. The D-line won this game, and the secondary just kind of put the icing on the cake.
And in turn, Tampa Bay now 1-7 in primetime games with Baker Mayfield at the helm. 14 drives, 9 points against this defense in Detroit that stands up and answers the bell. Maybe a final thought here on Tampa Bay, Emery. I know we don't want to overreact to 60 minutes of football. What do you chalk this up to, and how does it make you reassess where they situate at the top of the conference? 60 minutes in a tough building, or something broader to be worried of?
We kind of mentioned this in the pregame where we didn't want them to rush these guys back and try to make this about this particular game, albeit an important one. But we saw what happened. Now you lose Mike Evans again, and also Ibuka wasn't 100%. So to me, this is more of a long-term issue now. We got to worry about how they're going to get these guys back healthy, fully healthy. They're still a very good team. They just ran up against a defensive line that really shut down the run, which took away a lot of what they also wanted to do throwing the ball.
Well, the problem for Tampa is the problem that most teams have when they play Detroit coming off a loss, right? They haven't lost back-to-back games in over 3 years. And when they play Detroit in Detroit, that's why this game was so important for either side. And yes, we're in the month of October with a lot of football left to be played, but games like this could decide the seeding in the playoffs.
Definitely.
And if you're a team like Detroit, you want the #1 spot more than any other team in the NFC because of how dominant you've been at home, how dominant Jared Goff has been there in Ford Field. So yes, the magnitude of this game probably wasn't talked about as much, but when you look at what Detroit has done at home, Joe, you don't want to go in that building. You talked about how Jahmyr Gibbs seems to be faster there in the Ford Field. There's no seam, he is. On that turf, that's a fast track when you talk about Jared Goff. Look at Jared Goff's numbers when playing at home there in Detroit. He's been dominant. Look at the defense, the noise. We saw how the noise played a part for Baker Mayfield. So what Baker and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers ran into, even though they were not healthy, they haven't been healthy the last few weeks, it didn't stop them. But they ran into a team that is very, very good coming off a loss, and they do not play around with home cooking there in Detroit.
Now wins off of their last 12 losses, have not lost consecutive games, as you said, in 3 years, Matt. We'll see if they can exercise some of those demons in that building come postseason. But this one, as you said, could go a long way in sorting where we play football come January. We'll look at Jahmyr Gibbs and the night that was. Most career games with 100-plus rushing yards in Lions history. Now, a ways to go, you could say here, Emery Hunt, but 8 such games in his